Welcome, guys, to Orbit of Sleep. Tonight, I want you to close your eyes and imagine the ground beneath your feet shifting. Imagine the certainty of everything you have been told about history cracking apart. What if humanity is not the beginning, but only the latest chapter? What if before us there were others civilizations that rose to heights far beyond what we can even imagine, and then fell into dust so completely that only fragments remain? Whispers carved into stone legends, carried across cultures, myths that speak the same story over and over, a story of rise brilliance, destruction and silence. We live with the illusion that we are the pinnacle, that we are the first. But what if that illusion is the greatest lie of all archaeologists? Dig in deserts, jungles, and frozen wastelands, uncovering structures that should not exist, tools that should not exist, maps that chart lands long before they were discovered. The deeper we look, the more the timeline of history begins to look like shattered glass scattered pieces from an ancient puzzle that refuses to fit together. They tell us history begins with Mesopotamia, 6,000 years ago. But then, how do we explain Göbekli Tepe, a temple buried in Turkey 12,000 years old, older than agriculture, older than the wheel who built it, who carried stones, weighing tons before the dawn of civilization? What knowledge did they possess, and why was it buried deliberately, as if someone wanted it hidden from the eyes of the future? The story does not end there. It only grows stranger in South America. Walls of stone fit together with such precision that even a blade cannot slide between them at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. Megalithic structures rise as though molded like clay. Yet our tools, even today, struggle to move stones of that size. The Inca said they did not build them, they inherited them. Remnants of a people long vanished in Egypt. The pyramids stand, but erosion marks on the Sphinx whisper of rains that fell more than 10,000 years ago. In an age when the Sahara was not a desert, but a green paradise. Could it be that the builders belonged not to dynasties, we know, but to a lost world buried by catastrophe? And then the myths flood in. Nearly every culture tells the same tale. The world before, swept away by fire, by water, by an event so violent it scarred memory itself. The Great Flood in the Bible, the deluge of Mesopotamia, the sinking of Atlantis spoken of by Plato, the destruction of Dwarka in Indian texts. Are these just stories or faint recollections of real disasters that ended worlds before ours when we piece these fragments together? The picture is haunting humanity, rising again and again like a phoenix, only to be crushed again by the weight of Earth's fury. We think we are the first, but maybe we are only the latest survivors of an endless cycle, written not in ink, but in ruins scattered across the planet. And the most terrifying question remains if civilizations before us reached unimaginable heights. What caused their fall? Was it nature? Was it war? Was it something far greater than both? And if it happened to them, what does that mean for us tonight? We search for the traces hidden in plain sight. Tonight, we walk into the shadows of forgotten worlds. Tonight we ask the question no one dares to answer. Are we really the first civilization on Earth, or just the last still standing? Across the icy plains of Antarctica lies a mystery sealed beneath miles of frozen silence. Radar scans have revealed geometric structures and patterns buried deep below the ice formations. Too perfect to be natural, too symmetrical to be explained away. Scientists claim it is only rock formations, but whispers grow louder. What if, beneath that endless white is a city swallowed by the sudden shift of poles frozen in an instant, when Earth turned on itself? Plato wrote of Atlantis swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. Could it be that its remains sleep beneath Antarctica, shielded from our eyes, until the ice begins to melt, And with climate shifting faster each year, what has been hidden for millennia may soon awaken. The oceans, too, guard their secrets at the bottom of the sea off the coast of Japan. Lies Yonaguni Monument, colossal steps and terraces carved from stone stretching into the depths. Some claim it is natural, others insist it is man-made. Yet if it was crafted, then it was built, when that land was still above water more than 12,000 years ago. Again, the same time frame as Göbekli Tepe and the Sphinx again, the same whisper of an older world, one that thrived when we were still told we were nothing more than wandering hunters. How many more ruins lie beneath the waves, swallowed during the great floods that reshaped Earth, coastlines devoured, entire continents drowned, leaving only echoes of memory passed down through myths. Even in the deserts, the ghosts of lost civilizations watch from beneath the sands. In the Sahara lies the Eye of Africa, the Risha structure, a vast circular formation visible only from the sky. Some believe it to be natural. Others see in it the shape described by Plato, a concentric city ringed with water. Could this be the true Atlantis hidden in plain sight, carved into the bones of Africa itself? Ancient maps, like the Peary race chart, Antarctica without ice show continents, as they were long before explorers ever set sail. How could such precision exist unless they inherited knowledge from those who came before? The evidence piles higher and higher, but what terrifies us is not what we know. It is what we feel we are walking on the ruins of a forgotten story. Every city, every temple, every artifact we call the beginning may only be a remnant of something greater. Imagine civilizations mastering technologies. We cannot comprehend energy drawn from the earth itself. Weapons that could reshape landscapes. Architecture designed to withstand time itself, only to fall suddenly erased as though the earth itself conspired to wipe the slate clean. We are taught progress moves forward step by step. But what if it moves in cycles, rising to great peaks, collapsing to ashes, and then rising once again? And here is the haunting thought. If humanity has risen and fallen, before then somewhere deep in our memory, perhaps in our very DNA, we carry fragments of that knowledge, flashes of understanding. We cannot explain instincts that do not belong to the species of 6,000 years, but to something older, something ancient. Why are we drawn to the stars? Why do we build monuments aligned with constellations? Why do we dream of cataclysms we have never seen? Could it be echoes of a time when our ancestors not only walked this earth, but mapped the heavens with precision far beyond our own? Every ruin, every myth, every unexplained artifact is not just a curiosity, it is a warning. Civilizations rise, but they also fall. And if we are not the first, then we may not be the last. The silence of the ancients speaks louder than their ruins. They are gone. But we are here for now. But the same forces that ended them still circle us, waiting in the shadows. And the question becomes not if, but when will history repeat itself? Volcanoes once tore the sky open and swallowed entire cultures. Rivers that nurtured life turned against their people with floods that erased generations. Droughts stretched for centuries, grinding thriving empires into dust. The earth is both cradle and executioner, and when we study the ruins scattered across the globe, we are not just studying architecture, we are staring at tombstones of forgotten civilizations in Mesopotamia. They tell of a flood so vast it cleansed the world. The Bible calls it Noah's flood in Mesopotamian tablets. It is Utnapishtim's tale in Hindu texts. It is Manu's salvation. How could stories, oceans apart, all remember the same cataclysm unless it was lived by all of them? A memory so violent it became etched into the human soul, carried across continents, retold by every culture. Consider the frozen mammoths in Siberia, preserved mid-bite with food still in their mouths. Their deaths sudden, their bodies frozen in moments suggesting not a gradual change, but a catastrophe so abrupt that nature itself stood still. Some scientists whisper of pole shifts, where Earth's crust moves violently, repositioning continents in hours, creating tidal waves. Miles-high winds that tear across the planet with speeds beyond comprehension if such an event struck. Once it could strike again, and perhaps it already has over and over. The mammoths may be just the last victims of a cycle older than history. And then there is the question of knowledge. Fragments scattered like broken glass. The Baghdad battery, a clay jar that seems to generate electricity thousands of years before modern science, the Antikythera mechanism. A complex gear-driven computer capable of charting celestial movements crafted 2 millennia ago, with a precision we still struggle to replicate. The pyramids of Egypt, aligned perfectly to cardinal points, and stars built with stones weighing tons, moved with techniques we cannot fully explain. Why do we dismiss these as coincidences when stacked together? They paint a picture too sharp to ignore. These were not accidents. These were survivors carrying forward pieces of a vanished science, whispers of a greater knowledge left behind, like breadcrumbs leading us back to the truth. Look closer at the pyramids. They are not isolated marvels. Step pyramids rise in Mesoamerica, in Cambodia, in Mesopotamia, across the planet. Cultures oceans apart built the same structures with the same principles, as if following instructions from a shared origin who gave them this blueprint. Why did they all turn their gaze to the heavens, align their monuments to Orion, to the solstices, to the great cycles of the stars? Unless they remembered something we have forgotten. The stars are not just lights in the sky. They are clocks, and perhaps the ancients knew what they were counting down toward. Imagine for a moment that civilization is not a straight climb from caves to cities, but a wheel turning endlessly. Each time humanity rises, learns, masters its world, and each time disaster strikes, resets everything back to ashes. The survivors carry fragments of memory, fragments of tools, stories of gods who walked among men, floods that drowned the earth fire from the sky, beasts that once ruled this world, and then slowly the cycle begins again. And we standing here with satellites and skyscrapers are simply the next turn of the wheel. Not its peak, not its end, just another rise waiting for the fall. And that fall may not be distant because the earth still trembles beneath us. The skies still burn with storms. We cannot control. The seas still rise inch by inch, swallowing coastlines, while beneath the ground volcanoes wait silent but alive. The same forces that erased the ancients are stirring again, and we must ask ourselves if they fell with all their wisdom and power. What chance do we truly have when the cycle turns once more? The ruins whisper louder when you walk among them. The shattered stones of Göbekli Tepe buried deliberately under tons of earth, a temple older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, carved with images of animals, long extinct beasts that should not have been known to humans. Yet they are etched with precision as if seen with living eyes. Who carved them? Who gathered here on this hill more than 12,000 years ago, long before recorded history tells us civilization even existed? Archaeologists try to frame it as a primitive shrine, yet its complexity says otherwise. Its geometry precise, its alignments deliberate. It feels less like the beginning of something and more like the remnant of something already lost. Travel to South America and the stones of Puma Punku defy explanation. Blocks weighing hundreds of tons, cut with machine-like precision, interlocking as though molded by some forgotten technology. Granite shaped like puzzle pieces, with angles so sharp they cannot be the work of primitive chisels. Even with modern tools, replicating such perfection would be daunting. Why then did a so-called primitive culture achieve what we still struggle to match? Unless they were inheriting skills, not their own building with knowledge carried through whispers of an older destroyed age. Each block, there is not just a stone, it is evidence, a survivor's artifact carved testimony that someone lived before and left a message in rock? And what of the maps passed down to us by explorers? The Piri Reis map showing Antarctica centuries before its official discovery not only discovered, but depicted ice-free coastline beneath the frozen sheet. Something last visible over 6,000 years ago. How could a sailor of the 1500s draw land that even satellites today barely confirm, unless he copied it from older charts remnants of a seafaring culture, erased but not entirely forgotten, fragments of memory embedded in parchment ink carried forward until it surfaced again like a ghost? The same threads tie together myths of gods descending from the sky, luminous beings with power and knowledge beyond comprehension. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, the Egyptians worshipped them as Osiris and Ra, the Greeks as Titans and Olympians, the Mayans as feathered serpents across continents. The story repeats, luminous teachers bringing fire law, agriculture, astronomy, and when their work was done, vanishing into the stars, promising to return. Perhaps these are not gods, but survivors, messengers from the last cycle, who carried forward their knowledge into the new one. And when humanity grew enough to sustain itself, they stepped back, leaving us to believe them divine. But the Earth remembers what it has endured. Ice ages, crushing everything beneath walls of frozen silence. Comets blazing across the sky, shattering ecosystems. Floods swallowing coasts. Whole deserts swallowing farmland, volcanoes cloaking the world in ash. These are not rare events. They are inevitabilities. The cycle is relentless. It does not care for cities or pyramids or power. Every civilization stands like a flame on a windy night, flickering bright but fragile. And the ruins we see today are the ashes of those flames remind us that what we call permanent is nothing but temporary scars on the Earth's surface waiting to be washed away. Now imagine what we might have lost. Entire sciences wiped away, medicines that healed without chemicals, machines that ran without fuel, structures that stood unyielding to time, all erased by firewater and stone, leaving only fragments that confuse us today. What if the ancients were not primitive but advanced in ways unfamiliar to us? What if our skyscrapers, computers and satellites are not progress but rediscovery? Chasing shadows of knowledge that has already risen and fallen long before us, and perhaps will again. Perhaps the greatest question of all is not whether civilizations existed before us, but how many times humanity has climbed this fragile ladder and been thrown back down. Imagine standing on the shore of a world unrecognizable. 50,000 years ago, jungles stretching endlessly, deserts, now lush and green oceans rising higher than our tallest cities. And within those landscapes, entire cultures, thriving cultures that never reached us because the sea swallowed them. Their monuments lie beneath hundreds of feet of water, waiting in silence near Japan's Yonaguni coast. Divers have found what appear to be steps, terraces, and carved passages, all buried beneath the waves. Skeptics call it natural erosion. Yet the symmetry is too precise, the angles too exact. Could it be one of the lost cities consumed when the seas rose at the end of the last ice age? A reminder that the Earth itself is the destroyer of history, wiping slates clean before anyone can record the truth. Consider also the myths of Atlantis. Plato did not describe a fantasy land, but a memory preserved through oral tradition. A powerful civilization that fell in a single day and night to earthquakes and floods swallowed by the ocean. Skeptics dismiss it as allegory. Yet new evidence of sunken cities off the coasts of India and the Mediterranean echo his words, structures, submerged and forgotten stories told in stone. The legend may not be one place, but many scattered across the world, civilizations erased in the same catastrophic sweep, yet remembered as one because memory collapses when time stretches too far. And there is another mystery far darker, one found in bones scattered across caves and deserts. Human remains that do not quite fit our lineage, elongated skulls with cranial capacity larger than ours, skeletons of giants towering above, normal humans, myths of the Nephilim, in the Bible of the Titans in Greece, of giants walking with men. Could these be genetic remnants of another branch of humanity wiped away or absorbed into us? Their bones hidden, their stories turned into myth because science cannot yet place them neatly on the family tree. What if humanity has always been more diverse, more complex than we are allowed to believe? Now look to the sky. Our ancestors did not draw constellations for amusement. They carved them into stone temples aligned with the heavens. The Great Pyramid aligned with Orion Angkor? What aligned with solstices? Stonehenge marking the dance of the sun across the sky. Why this obsession? Why this precision unless it mattered to them in ways we cannot grasp? Perhaps they were tracking cycles, not of years or centuries, but of ages, long arcs of time when cataclysms returned like clockwork patterns of destruction and renewal. They built calendars not to mark seasons, but to warn us that everything rises only to fall again. And in those moments of collapse, survivors would scatter wandering across ruined lands, carrying fragments of knowledge, seeds of stories, myths about floods, about gods, about the fire in the sky, all fragments of the same memory retold across thousands of years until they were reshaped into legend. What if Noah's flood was not a unique event, but one story among many, remembering a real disaster, a wave that swept across continents, wiping clean everything that stood and forcing humanity to begin again? Walk through the ruins of Baalbek, where stones larger than any modern crane can lift lie stacked with impossible precision, some weighing more than 1,000 tons left unfinished as if workers vanished overnight. What kind of technology could move such masses? Why were they abandoned mid-construction as if catastrophe struck? Suddenly silencing the builders forever in Egypt, we see the same sudden silence, massive monuments built with purpose and precision, then abruptly ending, replaced by lesser imitations as though knowledge was lost in a single generation passed down as fragments that weaker hands could not replicate. These gaps in history are not accidents. They are scars of a repeating cycle. Civilizations rise, climb to unimaginable heights, and fall, leaving only ruins, myths, and confusion. For those who come after us, and perhaps we are next. Perhaps our satellites, our glass towers, our steel monuments will be nothing more than shattered bones of a forgotten world waiting to be stumbled upon by humans 10,000 years from now, who will wonder who built these strange structures, what gods they worshipped, what catastrophe silenced them forever, and they too will not have the full story, only fragments, only myths. So when we ask, are we the first? Are we alone? The earth itself whispers the answer in broken stones, in maps too accurate for their time, in bones that don't belong to us, in monuments aligned with the stars. The answer is clear. No, we are not the first. We are only the latest, and the cycle has never stopped. It is still turning, and someday what we call history will be nothing more than another forgotten layer buried beneath mud and water, waiting to be rediscovered by eyes not yet born. And if the cycle is still turning, then what signs are we ignoring today? Signs etched into the very crust of the Earth, deep beneath our oceans, lies the mid-Atlantic ridge, a scar across the planet where land has risen and sunk countless times. Is it coincidence that legends of Atlantis place it here, a continent-sized civilization swallowed by the sea, with barely a trace left behind? Scientists now admit that entire land masses have vanished under the waves. Zealandia, near New Zealand, once a continent, now hidden beneath water, almost completely invisible, unless you map the ocean floor. What else has been erased, waiting in silence, until another generation learns to see it? Even on land, the scars remain. The Sahara Desert, once green fertile, a cradle of rivers and lakes, today a wasteland of sand. Yet beneath the dunes lie ruins. Satellite images reveal strange patterns. Geometric shapes buried in silence. Could they be the remnants of forgotten cities, swallowed not by water but by time? How many civilizations have been erased because their bones lie beneath deserts, forests, or mountains? Humanity is blind to what it does not dig for. Consider Göbekli Tepe, a discovery that shook archaeology to its core circles of stone, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids built by hunter-gatherers who were never supposed to be capable of such engineering massive pillars carved with animals, symbols and celestial patterns, then deliberately buried as if to hide them from the future. Why would a people create a temple more advanced than their time and then cover it in earth unless they were survivors carrying fragments of older knowledge from a world already lost? Perhaps burying it was their way of preserving it for those who would come after. Every culture carries a memory of fire from the sky. The Hopi speak of worlds destroyed before ours. The Mayans recorded cycles of creation and destruction. The Vedas of India describe great wars fought with weapons of light and sound that shook the heavens. What if these are not myths, but distorted memories of real events? Asteroids striking the Earth, solar flares burning the sky, technology from forgotten ages, unleashed in cataclysm. The Younger Dryas event 12,000 years ago already proves that fire came from the sky. A comet or asteroid impact ending an ice age in a single instant, reshaping the world in floods and fire. Perhaps it was this that destroyed the civilizations. We are only beginning to rediscover. Now imagine the survivors walking through that ruined world. Skies darkened, rivers, raging cities erased. They would pass down their memories through stories to their children. Fire rain, gods of thunder, oceans swallowing mountains over time. These stories became myths. Gods became symbols. The truth obscured but never erased. Why do so many ancient cultures worship sky gods? Why do they all tell of a flood? Why do they all speak of a golden age? Destroyed perhaps because they are all fragments of the same story whispered across millennia in South America at Puma Punku. Stones weighing hundreds of tons, carved with machine-like precision, interlocking like puzzle pieces, their surfaces so exact that not even a razor blade fits between them. Archaeologists say it was done with primitive tools. Yet the cuts are cleaner than what we achieve today, with diamond-tipped saws who carved these stones. And why do the local legends say that gods descended from the sky and taught their ancestors how to build? Were these gods simply survivors of an earlier civilization, passing down knowledge that seemed divine to those who had lost everything? The same questions echo in Egypt, where hieroglyphs show strange objects resembling aircraft and machines etched thousands of years before flight was possible. Why align pyramids with constellations unless the stars mattered far more than survival? Why construct monuments that would last for thousands of years unless you wanted them to speak to a future far beyond your own time? What message were they leaving for us? What warning were they trying to carve into eternity? And then there are the anomalies buried deep underground in caves across the world. Ancient paintings of beings not quite human. Tall, elongated figures with strange helmets. Glowing eyes, objects in the sky that resemble discs and firewheels. Primitive people did not create art without purpose. They painted what they saw. What if those visitors were not gods, not aliens, but remnants of humans from before? Survivors carrying strange tools. Technology mistaken for magic. Perhaps the most haunting evidence lies in our own DNA fragments of unknown origin sequences that do not match anything on Earth. Could they be remnants of an ancient species merged into us? Lost branches of humanity that still whisper within our bloodline? If so, then we are not one species, but many woven together through cycles of destruction and rebirth. We are the living memory of worlds long gone. The cycle may not be finished. The Earth itself hints at it. Patterns of climate collapse, supervolcanoes, rising seas. The same forces that destroyed the world before could awaken again. Are we truly prepared? Or are we repeating the same mistake of those who came before, building monuments, reaching for the stars while ignoring the ground beneath us, shifting, breaking, preparing to swallow us whole? One day perhaps. Not tomorrow, not in 1,000 years, but inevitably the cycle will return. Oceans will rise, skies will burn, monuments will fall. And if humanity survives, it will scatter once more, wandering across ruined landscapes, telling stories of the gods of steel and fire who built towers into the sky. Stories of machines that flew and spoke and thought like men. Myths of a world too advanced to believe. And those stories will be all that is left until they too become buried beneath sandstone and silence, waiting for another generation to rediscover them and wonder, was there a world before ours? And will there be one after ours? Then we turn to the bones themselves. Silent witnesses buried deep in caves and tar pits. Skeletons that tell a story older than any myth. 4.7 million years ago, Earth was not ruled by men, but by beasts of terrifying size: lions, larger than trucks, saber-toothed cats with fangs like daggers, hyenas that hunted in massive packs. Rivers running red as predator clashed with predator in a struggle for dominance. It was into this nightmare world that our ancestors were born, fragile, upright creatures with no claws, no armor, no speed, only their minds. Imagine standing at the edge of a grassland as dusk falls, the air filled with the sound of insects and distant howls. Every shadow conceals death. Every gust of wind carries the scent of blood. Our ancestors had no fire, no weapons, no walls. Yet somehow they survived, surrounded by monsters that could end their lives in a single strike. How they endured is one of the greatest mysteries of prehistory. Evidence suggests that survival meant becoming invisible, moving silently in the tall grass, traveling at dawn and dusk, when the great predators were weakest, watching the skies for vultures circling, because vultures meant a fresh kill, and a fresh kill meant danger, but also opportunity. Bones, with teeth marks and stone tool cuts, tell us the truth. Humans were not hunters. Then they were scavengers, sneaking in after the lions and hyenas had fed, driving them away with stones and shouts, or waiting until night to cut meat from half-eaten carcasses. It was bloody, brutal work, but it kept them alive. In Olduvai Gorge, the ground still whispers. These stories tools, chipped from volcanic rock, found beside the bones of giant antelope and zebra, gnawed by both predator and human alike. These tools were crude, sharp edges, meant for hacking and scraping, but they marked a turning point. With them, humans could slice flesh faster, strip marrow from bones. Quicker, and in marrow lay the fat, the energy, the very fuel that allowed the human brain to grow. Each cracked bone tells of the moment thought became weapon. But scavenging was not enough. The predators were too many, too powerful. Humans had to learn to fight back. And so they began to use the world itself as a shield. Caves became sanctuaries, their walls scorched by early fire pits. Sharp branches hardened in flames became spears, crude yet deadly against unwary beasts. Over thousands of years, courage grew alongside skill. Humans began to hunt, not alone, but together. Voices shouting, stones flying, a pack of upright creatures working as one. Even the fiercest lion hesitated before such unity. The plains of Africa became a theatre of constant war. Humans stalking gazelle, while lions stalked humans, hyenas waiting at the edge for weakness, vultures circling above for death to come. The balance was fragile, yet slowly the hunters became hunted. Less often, fire gave light. Fire gave fear. Fire drew predators close, but also drove them back in terror. Around those flames, humanity's first villages were born not of walls, but of courage. And still, there was blood teeth sinking into flesh, screams torn into the night. We know this because the fossils tell us children's bones, with lion tooth marks, skulls shattered by predator bites. Entire families wiped out in a single hunt, yet enough always survived enough to pass down knowledge enough to sharpen tools again and again. Enough to whisper warnings to their children. Stay close to the fire. Stay together. Do not wander into the dark. Over time, cunning became the greatest weapon, watching the movements of beasts, learning where they hunted when they slept. How they struck humans mapped the rhythms of predators long before they mapped the stars. And that knowledge was their shield. Footprints in the mud told them. Whether lions were near droppings in the grass, warned them of herds passing scent on the wind, taught them. Who ruled the night? Every clue was life or death. The story of survival was written not in glory, but in terror. In nights where every crack of a branch might mean death. In mornings when the plains revealed torn bodies. In afternoons when packs of hyenas howled as they closed in on the weak, yet through fear humanity endured, because fear sharpened their senses and taught them to adapt. And it was in this crucible of blood and shadow that something new was born. Cooperation, not just in hunting, but in memory, passing down the lessons of survival across generations. The child who listened became the adult who lived. The elder who warned became the guardian of the tribe. Language itself may have begun in these desperate whispers, a way to shout danger, to plan a hunt, to mourn the dead. 4.7 million years ago, life was not about dominance, it was about endurance. Humanity's story began not as conquerors of nature, but as survivors in its jaws, surrounded by lions, larger than any today hyenas, that hunted with relentless fury and endless horizons, where every shadow promised death, and yet against all odds they endured. And as they endured, the world began to change slowly, imperceptibly, but inevitably. For every lion that killed, there was a human who learned. For every predator that stalked, there was a human who watched, waited, and adapted. The brain grew, the tools sharpened, the fire spread, the balance shifted, and the fragile prey began its long transformation into the planet's most dangerous predator of all. Then the winds carried change across the plains, and with it came the slow but relentless rise of humanity, no longer content to cower in shadows or pick at the scraps. Left behind, our ancestors began to take bolder steps into the territory of monsters. The saber-toothed cats whose canines were long enough to pierce the skull of an aurochs. The cave hyenas that hunted in packs larger than wolves, each one stronger than a man. And yet humans began to test their resolve, driven by hunger, sharpened by desperation, and guided by a mind that never stopped learning. The first signs are etched into bones, found with cut marks overlaying predator bites. Proof that humans did not just scavenge what was left behind. They fought for it. They threw stones, screamed in unison, and pressed forward together until even the king of beasts faltered for a moment. That hesitation was all it took. A slice of flint across tendon, a thrown spear catching flesh. The predators withdrew. Not in fear, but in calculation. Even they could sense that something strange was unfolding. The fragile prey was no longer predictable. By the banks of rivers, humans discovered ambushes watching the water where herds came to drink predators. Too hunted there, but humans studied the pattern. They waited downwind silent as statues then surged with sharpened sticks and rocks striking with ferocity. Not as lone creatures, but as a storm of bodies' teeth claws could tear one human apart, but they could not overcome 20 working as one blood spilled into the river. And for the first time, it was not only human blood, and from blood came innovation. Bones shattered open, with rocks revealed the marrow. the fatty treasure predators often left behind. The brain began to feed on this dense energy, growing in size, expanding in complexity. Neurons fired faster, memory. Deepened strategy sharpened. What was once instinct became planning. What was once fear became calculated risk. On the open savanna, fire became their shield and their sword. Lightning strikes ignited dry grasses, and from those flames, humans learned both terror and power. The predators feared fire, their glowing eyes retreating into the dark, while humans gathered around the warmth, safe for the first time in history. The flames became more than survival. They became a weapon. Branches hardened in the fire, became spears driven into beasts that once prowled the night. The balance shifted further, but survival was not guaranteed. Death still stalked. The weak fossil evidence shows skulls crushed by predator jaws, ribs punctured by claws, entire family groups lost to ambushes. Yet with each tragedy, the survivors learned sharper tools, more coordinated defenses. The whispers of strategy passed from mouth to mouth until whole generations grew up knowing how to stand against creatures that once ruled unchallenged. The caves tell these stories, painted thousands of years later. Silhouettes of lions towering above stick-figure hunters. Spears flying arrows piercing hides, fire blazing in the dark. The art was not just memory. It was warning and teaching. Every child who stared at those walls learned what their ancestors had faced. Every painting was a survival manual forged in blood. Still the saber-tooth ruled the valleys. Still the cave hyenas outnumbered any band of humans. Still lions prowled the edges of every encampment. The struggle was never victory. It was balance. Humanity never destroyed its rivals. It learned to live in their shadows day by day, generation by generation, until the shadows thinned. The most dangerous moment came not in the hunt, but at dusk, when herds stirred and predators gathered. Humans were forced to travel in groups, eyes wide ears, straining. Every cough of a lion, every distant laugh of a hyena struck terror into the marrow. The weak stumbled and were taken. The strong pulled the rest forward. The cost of survival was constant vigilance. Yet slowly, humanity mastered not just tools and fire, but the land itself. They learned migration routes following herds across seasons. They mapped waterholes hidden in the grass. They tracked the stars above, using them as guides across endless horizons. The predators did not understand such knowledge. It gave humans an advantage, invisible yet deadly, knowing when to arrive, when to strike, when to vanish, left predators starving while humans thrived. In the dust of Olduvai, in the caves of South Africa, in the frozen soil of Europe, the bones remain scars from claws, marks of teeth, chips of stone, tools, the record of a war older than civilization itself. A war not of armies, but of species, for every predator killed a human. Another rose in its place, more prepared, more cunning, more ruthless. The lions roared, the hyenas laughed, the saber-tooths snarled, and into that chorus, humanity whispered plans, and those whispers became shouts, and those shouts became survival for 4.7 million years. This was life, constant pursuit, endless fear, daily bloodshed, and still humanity endured. And so, as the millennia passed, the fragile line between hunter and hunted began to blur. For the predators had strength, speed, and fangs, but humans had patience and a mind that refused to stop learning when the lions stalked a herd of antelope. The humans watched from the ridges, silent, noting the paths the prey would take, noting where the cats struck hardest, and when the dust settled and the predators dragged their kill aside, the humans descended not timidly but with stones, raised spears, pointed torches blazing. They rushed in screaming as one, startling even the kings of the plains. The lions resisted, but against a swarm of voices, fire and flying stones. They retreated, snatching what they could, and vanishing into the night. and the humans took the carcass, blood still warm, flesh still steaming. This was not scavenging as it once had been. It was theft, bold, daring robbery in the face of death, the kind that only a creature with foresight could dare attempt. And every successful raid fed not just their bodies, but their courage. And with courage came something else: imagination. The mind that once only feared lions began to imagine defeating them entirely. The hyenas too learned to dread these strange naked apes, for hyenas were relentless in packs, larger than men with jaws that could crush bone into powder. But when they descended on the scraps of a kill, the humans descended too, and instead of scattering in terror, they encircled them, their fire hissing their spears, jabbing their cries filling the air like thunder. The hyenas snapped back, ripping flesh from the legs of men, dragging some into the dust. But still, the humans pressed forward, and at last the hyenas withdrew. Bloodied their laughter, gone replaced with silence. But victory never came cheap for every battle won. 3 others ended in disaster, skulls caved in by lion jaws. Children dragged into the night bodies, torn apart by hyena packs. The earth itself drank human blood, and yet every loss carved lessons into the survivors' minds. Do not wander at dusk. Keep fire burning through the night. Post watchers where the grass is tall track. The wind always carry a weapon. Survival was not instinct anymore. It was discipline. Generations passed, and the tools sharpened. Stones became blades. Wooden spears, hardened in flame, became deadly weapons, some even tipped with stone heads lashed by sinew. These simple inventions made a man's reach longer than the claw of a lion, made his strike deadlier than the bite of a hyena. For the first time, a fragile human could strike from beyond arm's length and kill. The predators felt this shift. They began to hesitate. Lions, once bold enough to attack groups, paused at the sight of fire and spears. Hyenas circled, but kept their distance. Saber-tooths prowled, but struck. Less often, something in them recognized the balance had tilted. Still, danger was everywhere. Wartholes were death traps. Riverside mud carried the prints of both prey and predator, and humans had no choice but to go there. The thirst drove them, and so every trip was a gamble, every shadow a threat. Some groups vanished entirely, their bones gnawed and scattered by beasts, only to be discovered thousands of years later. But those who returned alive told the stories. Stories that taught the young to listen to the silence, to recognize the glint of eyes in the dark, to run together, never alone. The oral memory of terror became humanity's first law. But humans were not content with mere survival. They began to turn their predators' own power against them. They learned to bait lions into ambushes, leaving scraps of meat weighted with stones, then attacking when the beasts lowered their heads. They dug pits near game trails, covered with branches, waiting for hyenas to stumble in. They watched saber-tooths from afar, timing their movements, then striking. When exhaustion slowed them, every success echoed into the next generation, building not only skills, but a sense of destiny, a belief that perhaps they were more than prey. And as the ice ages came and went, shaping the land, the struggle grew harder. Winters drove prey southward. Predators grew hungrier, leaner, more desperate. But the humans endured, wrapping themselves in hides, carrying embers across frozen plains, striking sparks into tinder. When fire died, they built shelters from bones and skin, places where predators could not enter, caves where walls glowed with paintings of beasts. The very monsters that stalked them etched in ochre and ash, their power frozen on stone so that no child could forget. The lions still roared. The hyenas still hunted. The saber-tooths still stalked the edges of their firelight. But something had changed forever, for in those caves around those fires, humans were no longer only surviving. They were imagining hunts, imagining victories, imagining a world where their kind did not cower in fear, but strode the land as masters, and step by step, kill by kill, fire by fire, they were becoming exactly that. Yes, because the story does not end with fire and sharpened stone. It only begins there. Imagine the scene: a dry savanna stretching under a burning sun, grasses waving, vultures circling overhead. At the edge of a clearing, dozens of humans crouched together. Their skins are smeared with ash, their bodies lean and scarred, their eyes bright with hunger and fear. Across the plain, a pride of lions stalks a herd of wildebeest. In any other age, the humans would watch and wait, praying the beasts would not notice them. But now, things are different. These humans are not content to scavenge scraps. They are preparing to hunt the hunters. The strategy is whispered from elder to youth. They will not attack with strength alone, but with deception, with patience. Some circle downwind, dragging branches across the soil to mask their scent. Others prepare bundles of dry grass, ready to ignite with glowing embers they have carried from camp. Spears, no longer crude sticks, but tipped with sharp flakes of stone, gleam in the sun. Their plan is simple: surround, confuse, drive the lions into panic. Where the beast's muscles are stronger, the human's mind is sharper. And when the lions bring down their wildebeest, the humans strike. Fire erupts from the grass as smoke curls into the sky. Stones fly. Spears whistle. The lions, startled, snarl and fight, but they are overwhelmed by numbers. Some fall, pierced by spears, bleeding into the dust. Others retreat, growling, their meal abandoned. For the first time, the humans not only steal the kill, they take it through force, through courage, through calculated unity. The hunters of the earth taste fear themselves. The hyenas, meanwhile, adapt differently. They come at night in endless waves, their yellow eyes glowing beyond the firelight, their laughter echoing like madness. At first, they snatch children, drag away the weak, leave bones scattered at the edge of camps. But humans refuse to let this cycle continue. They create watch systems, groups assigned to guard the flames until dawn, spears in hand, stones at the ready. They experiment with traps, digging pits lined with sharpened sticks, baited with bones smeared in blood. When hyenas lunge for the bait, they fall, impaled. The surviving pack howls in confusion as humans descend with fire to finish the job. Each victory is retold around the fire in vivid detail, not merely as triumph, but as instruction. This is how we defeated them. This is how you will survive when it is your turn. Over thousands of years, this oral library of blood and terror grows into a weapon stronger than any claw. Memory itself becomes a tool of survival. A child raised on tales of hunts and ambushes grows into an adult who knows, before ever facing a lion, how to read the wind, how to move without sound, how to wield fire like a god. Unlike the beasts, humans pass down not only instincts but stories, each one sharpening the edge of their collective mind. Still, the balance remains fragile. Lions strike camps in daylight, tearing apart those who stray too far. Saber-toothed cats, larger, heavier, their teeth like daggers, ambush humans along riversides. Hyenas wait for moments of weakness, swarming when fire burns low. For every victory, there are nights of horror, screams in the dark, blood spilled into the soil. Humanity's progress is written in the bones of its dead. But with every loss comes adaptation. Fire is no longer just warmth. It is shaped into weapons. Torches are carried into hunts, waved in faces of predators, thrust into dens. Spears are refined, weighted for balance, hafted with stronger stone points. Some groups even learn to drive prey animals into ravines, and so the world shifts again. What was once a land dominated by predators becomes a battleground of willpower and endurance. Imagine the endless plains 4.5 million years ago. the horizon broken only by low trees and scattered herds. Each morning begins with fear. For the moment the first light touches the grass, the hunters of the wild stir to life. Lions stretch and prowl, their golden eyes searching. Hyenas rise from their dens, hungry and restless. And in the middle of this danger, the fragile human bands prepare for another day. They move together, never alone. Solitude is death. Children cling to their mothers. Elders instruct the youth, and the strongest males and females carry spears sharpened with stone. At the center of every move is fire, carried in smoldering bundles wrapped in bark. It is both weapon and shield, a companion that wards off the endless night. Predators know no boundaries. At the watering holes, where beasts of every size gather, danger is constant. Crocodiles thrash from beneath the surface, dragging down anything that dares to drink. Lions crouch in the grass, waiting for a wildebeest or gazelle to stray. Hyenas circle like shadows, snarling, snapping, testing. For humans, water is both life and trap. They cannot avoid the rivers, yet each step to the edge is a gamble. Scouts are sent first, crouched low, eyes scanning for ripples or tails. Others prepare branches aflame, their crackle meant to remind predators that this fragile species carries more than bare hands. Still, attacks come. One moment of carelessness, one step too far into the reeds, and screams pierce the air. The pride of lions charges, muscles rippling, claws tearing earth. But humans are not the same as they once were. Spears rise, torches flare, and voices unite into a roar to match the predator's own. Blood is spilled, sometimes human, sometimes lion. Every clash is brutal, but every clash teaches. The hyenas adapt with relentless cunning. They know fire's boundaries. They wait until the smoke thins, until the embers cool. At night, they come in packs too large to count, yellow eyes glowing from every direction. They scream and laugh into the darkness, wearing down the nerves of their prey. But humans develop counters. Circles of fire are widened. Food scraps are buried or carried away, denying the hyenas their lure. Watchmen are posted high on rock outcrops, warning of movement long before the packs draw close. Traps grow more sophisticated. Pits are disguised with brush. Stone walls rise from the soil, crude but strong enough to delay an onslaught. And in the middle of this daily struggle, something remarkable begins to form. Unity beyond bloodlines. Different bands, once wary of each other, discover strength in merging. One clan alone might survive a lion raid. Two clans together can turn a lion's charge into its death. The hyenas, once unstoppable, begin to hesitate at the sight of dozens of torches blazing in unison. The first taste of organized defense emerges, and with it, a quiet realization. Humans are strongest not alone, but together. They move together, never alone. Solitude is death. Children cling to their mothers. Elders instruct the youth, and the strongest males and females carry spears sharpened with stone. At the center of every move is fire, carried in smoldering bundles wrapped in bark. It is both weapon and shield, a companion that wards off the endless night. Predators know no boundaries. At the watering holes, where beasts of every size gather, danger is constant. Crocodiles thrash from beneath the surface, dragging down anything that dares to drink. Lions crouch in the grass, waiting for a wildebeest or gazelle to stray. Hyenas circle like shadows, snarling, snapping, testing. For humans, water is both life and trap. They cannot avoid the rivers, yet each step to the edge is a gamble. Scouts are sent first, crouched low, eyes scanning for ripples or tails. Others prepare branches aflame, their crackle meant to remind predators that this fragile species carries more than bare hands. The hyenas adapt with relentless cunning. They know fire's boundaries. They wait until the smoke thins, until the embers cool. At night, they come in packs too large to count, yellow eyes glowing from every direction. They scream and laugh into the darkness, wearing down the nerves of their prey. But humans develop counters. Circles of fire are widened. Food scraps are buried or carried away, denying the hyenas their lure. Watchmen are posted high on rock outcrops, warning of movement long before the packs draw close. Traps grow more sophisticated. Pits are disguised with brush. Stone walls rise from the soil, crude but strong enough to delay an onslaught. And in the middle of this daily struggle, something remarkable begins to form. Unity beyond bloodlines. Different bands, once wary of each other, discover strength in merging. One clan alone might survive a lion raid. Two clans together can turn a lion's charge into its death. The hyenas, once unstoppable, begin to hesitate at the sight of dozens of torches blazing in unison. The first taste of organized defense emerges, and with it, a quiet realization. Humans are strongest not alone, but together. Over countless generations, this bond shapes not just survival, but identity. Rituals form around predator encounters. The killing of a lion is not just victory, it is ceremony. The spear that struck the final blow is decorated, the hunter's story told again and again by firelight. Scars are worn with pride, proof of survival in a land that offered none freely. Each death, each narrow escape, each night of terror becomes part of a growing mythos. Humans are fragile, but they endure. But danger never lessens, it only changes form. Saber-toothed cats, silent as shadows, begin to stalk the same prey as humans. They are larger than lions, heavier, with fangs that can slice through bone. Their ambushes are sudden, brutal, almost unstoppable. For early humans, the saber-tooth is terror made flesh. Entire camps are lost in single strikes, children crushed in jaws that no fire can deter. But again, the human answer is not strength, but adaptation. Scouts learn to read the silence of the forest, the sudden stillness of birds, the unnatural hush that signals the presence of a hidden predator. Spears are lengthened, giving distance between man and fang. Fires are carried even in daylight, torches ready to blind and burn. Slowly, painfully, the balance tips once more. The world is an endless trial. Droughts scorch the savannah, driving herds into far-off valleys. Hunger forces humans into territories patrolled by beasts they have never seen. Giant, short-faced bears, towering and merciless, packs of wolves, swifter and more disciplined than any hyena. Rivers swell with floods, carrying crocodiles into new hunting grounds. And always, at the edges of vision, the predators wait. Every sunrise is a gamble, every night a siege. Still, the cost is immense. Bones litter the plains, both predator and human. The soil is soaked with blood from generations of conflict. Every victory carries scars. Every advancement is bought with lives. But the story carved into this brutal age is clear. Humanity is not defined by strength or speed, but by resilience, by the refusal to yield even when the night is filled with eyes and the grass drips with blood.